Greetings, children, and welcome back to another KSP video. Today, well, we're going to be doing one of the hardest missions in KSP, and that is going to be a Tylo Landing. Now, what about Tylo makes it such a hard place to land on? Well, it's because it's around the same size as Kerbin, but it doesn't have an atmosphere. And also something that's often overlooked is that it's orbiting a very large body of Jewel, so orbital changes can take a lot, but that's only if you want to capture a Jewel first before capturing to Tylo. With this craft, which as you can see being built now, it's enormous, but with this craft, it's more of a just, it goes straight to Tylo, captures into orbit immediately. Now, I do confess here, you're going to see 5 engines on each booster, but on the final version, the 2 side boosters actually have 9 engines, so because it couldn't lift off with the original 5 on each, so it just cuts though, so you don't get to see that. But yeah, we're going through to the launch in a second. This loads. Here we go. So there we go. It's a very slow launching rocket. It almost looks like the center stack isn't there. It definitely is, trust me. So we're gonna speed through this pretty quickly. It's rather boring, but I like it. The fairing shape. I feel like it could have been less like that. I think it should have been a little less weird. It's shaped very unusual. But I mean, it gets ditched anyway, so I don't know why I'm complaining. But the 2 outer boosters crossfeed into the center one, so when they stage, it's fully fueled. That's just because I was very worried about transporting that massive lander all the way to Jewel and having enough Delta V to do that, because Tylo is just absurd. So I over-engineered the lander to hell and just really made sure that it could land. Also, the reason you didn't get to see the building of the lander or command module is because I wanted to test the lander beforehand, just to make sure it could in fact land on Tylo, because the one time I'd ever tried a Tylo landing, the lander did not have enough Delta V, because I underestimated the gravity losses of Tylo, which you'll come to see pretty soon. But here we are. This is the transfer to Jewel. We're gonna pretend that the Kerbals didn't have to sit in their command pod for a year. I always forget to get a transfer window first before launching them. So yeah, they were sitting in that command pod for a while, but you know what? We're just gonna pretend it didn't happen, because that's how I handle all my problems in life. Anyways, that transfer burn took a fair while, but it's been sped up, and I can't emphasize enough how much I love the Rhino engine. It's just so good, because in a vacuum it performs amazingly. If you really want to, you can use it in atmosphere, but that's a rather odd choice. It is a vacuum engine. I didn't realize until I really started getting into KSP like a few years ago that it was actually a vacuum engine, and that when in a vacuum, its thrust doubles. So, yeah, basically, it's just absurdly good because of the amount of thrust it provides, plus its efficiency, makes it perfect for a payload like this. Also, you can do what I've done and slap it onto a 5-meter fuel tank, and that just gives it so much wiggle room. Anyways, here we are just getting the Tylo encounter, because I struggled getting it before. Now, this lander has really tight margins, like ridiculously tight, for landing and liftoff. The liftoff margins are a little better, I guess, than the landing margins, but you'll come to see pretty soon that. And I did, because I was concerned about Delta V overall, I ended up using I used the Rhino for capturing into Tylo orbit and all that, which you'll see in just a second after this very slow turn. But yeah, Tylo is, it's if you're watching this video for a guide on how to land on Tylo. Firstly, don't. I'm not explaining it. But secondly, it's not somewhere you should need a guide to land. By the time you have the knowledge to land on Tylo, you shouldn't need a guide to land somewhere. Which, there is no set amount of hours that you need in KSP. Just play until you're comfortable designing your own landers, transfer stages, rockets, and everything. And then, once you've landed on basically everywhere, except for probably Eve, Ascent, I mean, and Moho, then I'd say you could go for Tylo. But yeah, we have the docking here. Now, this is kind of pointless, to be honest. I really didn't need to dock. I originally had just a decoupler on the top of the command pod there, but I ended up just biting the bullet and putting a docking port because it makes more sense. And also I wanted to use the command pod a little bit to break into orbit. Not to break into orbit, but to circularize the orbit, which you'll see in a second. I think, yeah. But yeah, you could look at that lander. It's bigger than the whole command service module. It's massive, like, and that there can only just land on Tylo. So I give like the biggest of props to people like Brad Westons and Hazardish who can do minimalist Tylo landings, because it's just absurd. Because this is the smallest thing I could engineer to do this. But yeah, you see the poodle on the bottom? Oh god. The ladders. I have PTSD about those ladders. Basically, I just was like, I tested it. I didn't test out the getting out and getting back on part, because I was like, yeah, they could easily jump back onto that ladder. I was wrong, and you're gonna see that soon. You're gonna see my struggles. Good lord. It's a good thing I brought an engineer on this mission, because if I hadn't brought an engineer, then it would have resulted in the mission just not having worked out. Anyways, here we have, you can see the ladders there and my weird ass setup. Also, sorry about the coughing. I have bronchitis. I'm recovering currently. I'm on antibiotics. It's getting better. What put me off from making this video a few days ago was because I couldn't say more than 3 words without breaking into a very painful coughing fit. So now I can speak, luckily. But here we see the descent. This was my 4th or 5th attempt, honestly. It's landing on Tylo is just absurdly difficult, dude. Because I've started playing a lot of Realism Overhaul, and landing on Tylo, I would compare to landing on the moon, the real moon, but also landing on the real moon is easier than this. I'm not kidding. The real moon is easier to land on than Tylo. But you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to deal with it, which I ended up doing here. This, fun fact, this is my first ever Tylo landing in hundreds of hours of KSP. But, yeah, so, see the descent here. I'm sure it's possible to do a perfect suicide burn for Tylo. It's obviously possible. But the height and everything, I'm not good enough to do that. But another thing I found with Tylo that makes it harder to land on and different than every other part of the game, and something that Realism Overhaul helped me with, is the surface is way further away than it looks. So you end up misjudging, and then it gets closer than you think it is, and it's really annoying. The same as with the moon in Realism Overhaul, but it's because all the other bodies in KSP have a similar ratio of that, except for Tylo. So it's very difficult. But here you can see, coming in for landing, and when we touch down, we have a whopping, I believe it is like 40 meters per second left. So you can see I was very happy because that was my like 5th attempt. But yeah, look at that margin. It's tiny for landing. And I landed from higher up in my testing, and I had more Delta V, so I guess I'm just really bad. But yeah, here we're planting the flag, and I was very happy, obviously. Then out gets the both of them. Now you can see clearly that that height on the ladder is too high for them, but yeah, here's my struggles. Yeah, after that terrible mess, I decided to just use the engineers to create a solution. And as you can see here, I moved down the top ladder and then had a lot of trouble. So it's very funny to watch that. A lot of trouble getting that middle ladder in, so I ended up just offsetting it, which I forgot you could do. And even then, it was still a run and a jump to get on the ladder. And it took a lot of attempts, but finally they get back on. And so, yeah, we've got... the engineer got in first, and my little monkey brain, I wanted to throw off the ladders. I want to, like, disconnect them just for a tiny bit of extra delta V. And I did. But I had the engineer and the pilot out at the same time, and I was just really dumb for doing that. It made no sense. But there we go. So we're going to set the vehicles. Okay, Tylo rotates very slowly, by the way. And here, big brainlet moment, I went on the map screen, firing the first stage, and ran out of delta V and started going down again. So yeah. And this stage is the ascent stage. Its thrust to weight is just barely enough for a Tylo ascent. You'll see here. Look at the way I'm pitching up. Like, it's terrible. It's basically straight up, just to not crash into the ground. But yeah, it's just, Tylo is just so absurdly hard to land on. But at least docking, I found here at least, was very easy. I've got an encounter, and it did not take much delta V to correct the encounter, and then also braking at the craft, you'll see it at 18 meters per second. It's nothing. Like, it takes more around the moon, or the mun, even. Sorry. Yeah, switch back to sea level there, and we were going up. And this is the point in the ascent where it's, like, safe, I guess. Yeah, there's no risk of colliding into terrain. During testing, I did a very close pass over a mountain, but also Tylo is, well, it's very flat, so it's not really a danger. But yeah, you can see there, it's a small, but I was originally going to dock the command module to the lander, because that would have been easier, because it's got way more delta V. But the lander ended up having more delta V than I thought it would in orbit, so I used the lander like I should. And there we are now, getting the nice, clean encounter. 18 meters per second. Nothing. And there we go. So, just the docking sequence here, it's a slow, gentle process in which I got too close and time warped over and almost hit the craft, because I'm an experienced player. But also on the bottom, God, my throat, on the bottom of those fuel tanks on the side there, you can see little docking thrusters. I added those just for docking and for fine adjustment, but I didn't use them for that. So yeah, it made the docking a hell of a lot easier. Because if you didn't know, the old command modules added before, not sure when, before probably the Making History expansion, they have monopropellant built in. So that Mark III, also there goes the lander, that Mark III has however much monopropellant already in it. You can take it out, but I couldn't be bothered. Anyways, here's the long ass burn to get out of Tylo orbit and into elliptical duel, which is a requirement, obviously. But yeah, the monoprop with that, it's in the command module, so for crafts like this, it's very nice not having to pack monopropellant. I do say so myself. And yeah, it's because I believe it's because crafts before a certain period would have required monopropellant for Kerbals to be in them. But yeah, interesting concept. And there you go, you see the Kerbals only had to wait like 4-8 days before getting a Kerbin transfer, which for my missions is very unlike me, but you know, guess it's these Kerbals' lucky day, they don't have to wait 3 years for a transfer. Yeah, this footage is greatly sped up, by the way. This burn took like 6 minutes, I think. there you go. Nuclear engines, I just use them for the ludicrous efficiency they provide, ludicrous ISP, but they have poor thrust to weight ratios, and they just tend to be slow to use, I guess. But yeah, I got a Kerbin encounter very easily, and I used the inbuilt RCS thrusters on the command module just to adjust it down, and then I went, pressed H by accident and made it worse. But yeah, at least we're at the furthest point possible, so you know, making changes is very easy. I decided to wait until we were at Kerbin before making like final changes, because I mean, you can see I've got 3 kilometers per second of delta V in this craft still. Just drifting back there. Also, this footage, I don't have to speed this footage up anymore. I got better time warp, so you can do a look. That is not sped up. It's it's so good. Seriously, if you don't have better time warp, get it. It is so good. But yeah, here we are coming in Kerbin. This should just be me. It's pretty boring from here, to be honest. Just lowering periapsis into the atmosphere, making sure everything will go fine. So it's sped up. I imagine this music is getting very repetitive. It's just KSP space music, but it is what it is. And yeah, really weird visual bugs on the entry. Look at that, shadows and Kerbin like appearing twice. I can only guess that's a scatterer issue or something, but I gotta say it was very annoying. And here we come in just for the final touchdown. So, last 400 meters. Well, I do have to do the normal pandering. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Of course, if you didn't enjoy it, then I don't know, don't watch my videos anymore. But even if you didn't enjoy it, a thank you for watching. So, it's been nice. I'll see you next time.